Yes, hello, welcome. Next episode. So, we're here. What do we have? What have we done? What did we do? Oh, yeah, so we finished off the HUD, at least like the bare bones HUD, right? And also we added game feel, which I'm guessing, well, we added like hitch anytime the ball hits. And I guess we're gonna add some like camera effects, like camera shake and stuff like that. What we also did last time was our ball hit event handler added these fields. Got these fields for that, and then every time we play the game, the ball hitches, depending on like how much you charge or how much the player, how like deep the ball is inside the wedge. So let's just show that quickly working. Also, so last time there was an issue where after restart, whenever you like restart the game in game, then the values just like for the hitch wasn't applying. That wasn't I thought it was a bug within my code, but it's not a bug within my code. It's to do with the inspector because I was tweaking the values in the inspector. Anytime I restarted the scene within the game, it reset the values without showing. So that's actually like a Godot issue. So it's not anything I need to do. But you can see it. The game hitches anytime I strike the ball. So if I pair that with like camera effects where like the camera shakes, I reckon it will feel like really good actually. Right now it looks a bit janky. But yeah, I do like it. There is a slight issue where whenever you hit it, the ball does move up slightly and then pauses. I'd rather it pause on hit, but it pauses like a fraction of a second later. I'm not sure how to deal with that. But deeper in the game, when I'm looking for polish, I guess I'll deal with that later. Right now I've got the mechanics working, so I'll just leave it for now. So next up, what I want to do, two things. I did watch a video about Godot best practices, and it was talking about like the project settings in terms of the window, how to set this up. So I'm gonna go over that, try to set it up properly. Try to set that up properly so that I'm not developing my game in the wrong aspect ratio or resolution. And then also in my file, what I thought about when I was developing it, but I didn't know like the syntax because I was asking Claude and for feedback and ways to improve. And obviously, while I was coding, I thought, well, this is really bad, this syntax for the event handlers, because we've got these two arguments which are being used by GameFill, but it's not being used by Game Manager, right? But I still have to include them in Game Manager. And let's say like the project grows, I'll have like sound effects and other things, and I need other arguments to pass through the event handler. That's just gonna grow and grow and grow, and then I'm gonna have to go to each file which includes that, and it will just be just a long process anytime I want to add something. So I was checking online and was asking Claude, and there are things such as event payloads where I could just have one argument in my paddle, in my ball event handler. I'll just have one argument, and that will be the payload. Therefore, anything else that uses it just needs that one argument. Anything in the future, I'll just add that one argument, and then whatever data that I need for a specific file would be able to dig into the payload and get whatever data out. So I'm going to try to sort both out, and we'll see how I get along. Right, so that's sorted. Project settings are fine from what I saw, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I had to kind of streamline my pipeline for the signals. I had to create a new file called strike info, and within that have my payload. So whatever variables I wanna pass on. So ball proximity percentage, charge percentage. That way, in the future, let's say my emit my whenever I hit the ball and emit the signal that I want to give a different give more data, all I have to do is go inside paddle, uh, inside info, add the new information, inside the strike info, add the new information. That way I don't have to touch any other files. Just in the new file, I'll have to just implement it like I was already gonna do. So it makes the process much easier. Now instead of on ball hit having all those arguments, now I just have strike info, and then I can pull in the info dot whatever information I need. So that's good. Project settings done. That's done. Next, what I'm gonna add. Next, what I'm gonna add to go in combination with my hitching, whenever my hit stops, so it stops whenever it hits. Next is a camera shake every time the ball hits as well, so that whenever I hit the ball, the game pauses for a split second, not like 160 milliseconds, and during that time the screen will shake a little bit as well. Therefore, both effects together, I feel like would give like a good feel, like game feel. So obviously that's gonna go inside game feel as well. So I'm gonna have to update this and not do hit stops done, but update my on ball hit method inside game feel. I'm not sure the syntax of how to do it, so I'm gonna have to search and Google and ask Claude and stuff for the syntax, and then try to understand it better, understand what each line is doing, and yeah. So I'm gonna try to implement that. We'll see how well I get on with that. Alright, so it's actually been a couple of days since last I developed actually. I took a couple days break. Well, I had something to do, and then I got demotivated. Then I started playing games. I found out Inscription had something called Casey's mod, which had an endless mode, and I don't know. I got distracted, and then got a bit demotivated, and then I thought I need to force myself back into the sort of mindset of trying to grind this out. So then I got back on it, implemented the screen shake. So screen shake is done now. I don't 100% understand the maths of it. I did get it from Claude. I tried to understand it as best as I could. So the way screen shake is dealt, we've got camera 2D right over here. Am I showing? Yeah, we've got camera 2D. That becomes our camera. I had to reframe that into the center and then assign it to game feel. We've got a camera export here. So I plugged camera 2D back in. So this is gonna, from now on, camera 2D is gonna be our camera. In game field, we've got our export fields. Where is, so this is for hit start, this is for shake. Okay, so you got camera, you got your max shake offset, max shake rotation, trauma decay. I'll get onto that in a second. And then we got these file values, base trauma per hit, whatever. Right, and then I've got a trauma cap as well. Instantiate everything, get our RNG randomized. Oh yeah, and we got our runtime states trauma and RNG. Then on ball hit, oh, I redid do hit stop so that it just takes a strike info field, and so inside of do hit stop, that's inside of it is where I calculate the charge and how long that pause should be. So don't worry about this debug. So then for the camera shake, we added trauma. We got a method called add trauma, and then add trauma is trauma to add, takes the base, takes the percentage of max trauma proximity, and then the same for charge, similar to what we did for do hit stop. And then that runtime state, that runtime field trauma, what we're doing is calculating whatever the minimum is. So we do trauma plus trauma to add and trauma cap, and we see whichever one is the minimum. That way we cap it at 1 or whatever trauma cap is, whatever I decide to make it. And then in process, I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. We got our screen shake stuff. Essentially what we're doing is we are decaying trauma back to 0. So we take the trauma, so once a hit happens, we set the trauma up here. And then, oh, what have I done here? We set the trauma, and then this is just decaying trauma back to 0 slowly over time. We've got shake amount, which is trauma squared. Now I don't understand this, why it's squared. I did test it out with just trauma, and what I did learn is that if I just do shake amount is just trauma, it does shake the screen, but it feels less. The small trauma feels less subtle, and then the big trauma, when it's like highly charged and close proximity, doesn't really hit as hard basically. So for some reasons, trauma squared makes it much more variable. So I've got that, and then here we're taking the camera and we're doing the offset. So we take the random, our random generate thing number, and then we find a random in range of -1 and +1 times max, and shake them out, do it for both X and Y, and do the same for screen rotation. That's a lot of the maths, well beyond my pay grade, but it works. I'm gonna build the project, I'll show my input, and then you'll be able to see that we do have screen shake. So at the tip it screen shakes, deeper it's a much harder hit, and if we move around it starts to feel like a game, and I actually kind of like the feel of this. Alright, so the ball gets the whole screen gets shaken actually, which is interesting. I actually kind of like, so the combination of hit stop and the screen shake actually makes it feel like you're doing something satisfying. So let's let that go. Game over, restart, same thing. Oh, sorry. Same thing basically. So that's done. Now I have noticed one thing, that the score shakes with it. So what's next? I did write a list of what's next. I'm gonna add another one. Make hard not shake on hit. Okay, so I've got a couple things on mind of what the next steps should be. We need a better visual indication of paddle charge. Right now, if we go to paddle, I've turned it off. Visibility. Oh, it's on. No, sorry. Paddle body. Visibility. Color rect. Visibility is off. So you saw how it was before. Now it's like this. What I've originally had was this. But in terms of actually testing and playing the game, I find that it gets in the way too much, and it's not how it's going to be in, inside the game. So I want to get rid of that completely and have some sort of visual indication on the sides to show how much I've charged, so that I can see visually like what's going on. So I want to do that. Let's turn this off again. I want to do that. That is short term. So we got that. Implement aiming curve. The way that's gonna work is on our pivot, radius. If the ball is hit here, actually let's show this better. So let's go here. Let's go here. So if the ball is hit over here, obviously we're aiming in this direction. If the ball is struck here, it should follow the path of the aim much more. If the ball is hit, let's say here, it should follow the direction of where it is from the pivot directly. So the further the ball is, the less your aim actually gets taken into account. The closer it is, the more risk you put into it. Your aim actually matters much more. I want to implement that. So that's a short-term thing as well. Implement aiming curve on here. The farther. Oh yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. That's what I spoke about. That's short-term as well. Implement super hit. Now, what's a super hit? I'm going to have, similar to this, a small little like area. If the ball is within that area, it counts as a super hit. The ball velocity is much higher. For things inside the game field, it should break on first hit instead of taking a couple hits to break. Stuff like that. Aiming is just completely like in sync. That stuff, that would be a super hit. I want to implement that as part of my game. That's sort of midterm. Implement targets to hit on the playfield. So the way the game plays, to make it interesting, I'll have like a target to hit. You get like bonus points or whatever, and you can actually complete the level by breaking things. That would be more long-term stuff. Do that. Midterm. Short-term. And long-term. So implement stuff. Implement power-ups. Stuff to make or actually power-ups and negative power-ups, I guess. Or little traps, basically. So have things like, if you aim and hit something, some type of orb, it will make your character faster, or it would make your radius wider, or on the other end, try to avoid stuff that will make your player slower and stuff like that. I want to implement that. That is long term. as well. Have a hit buffer. I feel like this is short term. So we're putting short term, but it is something I've been talking about for a couple of devlogs now. I spoke about how currently we have this image you've been seeing for so long. Currently the way it is, even if the ball is here, technically that's outside obviously, but because of the speed at which it's going, in game it kind of feels a bit too harsh, a bit too unfair. So I want to implement something where it does recognize if it's within a certain amount outside the current wedge, just a little bit, that it would allow it to count as a hit. And I've been meaning to do that for a while. I've been holding off on it. Because right now I've implemented what I have, which feels like a complete game loop, and it's starting to feel like it's coming together. But I'm a bit aimless in terms of I don't know where to go next. So I want to lay out certain things that certain milestones that I want to hit. So we've got hit buffer. That is short term, or short to mid, but is short term. Implement targets and make HUD not shake on hit. This is something that I just realized now that makes the HUD very hard to see. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're playing the game. So I do want some sort of screen shake on the HUD, or some type of movement based on like ball movement, paddle movement, and hit as well. But I want it to be independent of the shake instead of part of the shake, because right now it's just everything's all uniform. And having like an independent HUD that moves itself and stuff like that I feel like would make the game feel deeper. So make HUD independent HUD. Have I spelled that wrong? Spelling independent. Yeah, I spelled it wrong. So that's my plan. That would be mid to long term as well. Short to long term, mid term. So this is what I've got laid out for the next steps. Because I have taken a couple days break from development, and I've just finished the screen shake. I do want to cut this devlog off now, but I did want to lay out some sort of rough plan of steps that I'm going to take. So in future devlogs, especially, or the next devlog, what I'm going to definitely do is better visual indication of paddle charge. That will be done, and I think I'm going to try my hand at implementing the aiming curve of how a deeper aiming mechanic than what I've got. Those are the steps, and then I think I'm going to implement these one by one. Get the short term ones out of the way first, then get to mid-term, and then the long-term stuff we can start getting into ramping up difficulty and stuff like that. That's the plan for the future. This has been a weird devlog, split over multiple days and not much done, but now that I've got all that behind me, these are the steps, and yeah, that's the plan. So that's the end of the video. Tomorrow I'm definitely going to start the next devlog and start to implement these things. But thank you for watching, I appreciate it. Take care.